Shalom, shalom, friends, and it's good to be with you again this afternoon. And as we come together today, there has been on my mind a big question that I wanted to talk about. Today is we were talking about the plagues in Egypt, and I thought I'd address personal plagues in our life. After all, one of the deepest and most enduring questions that we can ask in our life is, why do bad things happen? You know, when someone receives a frightening diagnosis, when a family experiences a tragedy, when a hurricane strikes, when a child suffers, or when an accident changes life, we ask why. And we reach out to God. Why did this happen to us? See, many people assume that if God is in charge, then every event must be directly willed by God. If something painful happens, God must have caused it. If something occurs, it must be punishment. If tragedy strikes, perhaps someone deserves it. Yet there's a powerful and deeply Jewish way of understanding the world that challenges this assumption. For according to many Jewish thinkers, not every misfortune is an act of God. Not every hardship is punishment. Not every tragedy carries a hidden message that we're meant to decipher. Some painful things happen because we live in a world that is governed by natural laws, human freedom, and the unpredictability of existence itself. You see, the Torah hints at this complexity. We have the story of Job. You might think of that. Job, after all, was a righteous and compassionate and faithful person, yet disaster strikes him from every direction. His children die, his wealth disappears, his health collapses. Throughout the book, Job's friends insist on a simple explanation. You must have done something wrong, Job. Their theology is straightforward. Good things happen to good people, and bad things happen to bad people. Therefore, if something terrible happened, Job must be guilty. The entire purpose of the book of Job is to reject that simplistic understanding. At the end of the story, God rebukes Job's friends. Their mistake was not that they cared about Job. Their mistake was believing they understood the reason for suffering. The book teaches humility. Human beings do not possess the wisdom to explain every tragedy. The rabbis continue this tradition of honesty. In the Talmud, we find repeated acknowledgments that righteous people sometimes suffer while wicked people sometimes prosper. The sages leave that question open. Why? Perhaps the most famous expression is in the book of Ecclesiastes, where the author observes that time and chance happen to them all. Life does not always unfold according to a visible system of rewards and punishments. A person can do all the things in life right and still become ill. A careful driver can be struck by a reckless one. A loving parent can lose a child. A generous person can experience financial hardship. None of these realities fit neatly into a theory of divine reward and punishment. One of the most influential Jewish thinkers, Rabbi Moses Maimonides, offered a profound perspective. See, he argues that God created a world that operates according to consistent laws. The same natural order that makes life possible, it also makes suffering possible. You see, fire can warm us, but it can also burn us. Water sustains us, but it can also flood. Gravity keeps us grounded, but we can fall. And the human body can heal itself in remarkable ways, and yet we're vulnerable to disease. In other words, the very laws that allow life to flourish also create the possibility of pain. God's gift of a stable and orderly universe means that nature follows predictable patterns. We know that. We believe that. We feel that. Jewish thought also emphasizes another reality, and that's the reality of human freedom. God grants us, as humans, the ability to choose. That makes love possible. It makes generosity possible. It makes creativity possible. But it also makes cruelty possible. Wars are not hurricanes, and genocide is not an earthquake. Many forms of suffering arise not from God, but from human choices. When people lie, exploit, neglect, or harm one another, they create suffering that God did not force them to create. A world with free human beings brings the possibility of human wrongdoing. And this perspective changes how we understand suffering. Instead of asking, what did I do to deserve this? We can recognize that some events are simply part of living in a fragile and imperfect world. And that recognition can be liberating. Too often, people who are already suffering burden themselves with guilt. They search their past for some hidden sin. They wonder what lesson God is trying to teach them. They blame themselves. But Judaism urges caution here. For the rabbis teach that when visiting a mourner, we do not explain suffering. We do not offer theological theories. We do not tell people why God allowed them to suffer, and instead, we sit with them, and we listen, and we comfort. Why? Because human presence is the religious response. No explanation, but compassion. Jewish tradition understands that the need to explain suffering often comes from discomfort. We want to make the universe make sense. We want certainty. But sometimes faith means accepting uncertainty. Sometimes it means that we must admit we don't know why something happened. But we choose to respond with love and presence anyway. And this brings us a profound shift in perspective. For the most important question is not why did this happen? The more important question is, now that it's happened, how do I respond? That's the question our tradition repeatedly asks. For when Joseph is betrayed by his brothers, he asks how he's going to live. When Ruth loses her husband, she asks how she will move forward. When the Israelites find themselves in the wilderness, they must decide what kind of people they will become. Judaism consistently focuses less on explaining adversity and more on responding to it. Will suffering make us bitter or compassionate? Will loss isolate us or deepen our empathy? Will hardships diminish us or help us to discover strengths we never knew we possessed? This is our answer. This is our way of approaching these questions. The Jewish response to tragedy is neither despair nor simplistic certainty. It is instead humility, compassion, resilience, faith, and the knowledge that in a world where accidents happen, diseases occur, storms strike, and human beings sometimes hurt one another, life can still contain meaning. Goodness is still there. Kindness exists. We don't ask, why did it happen? We ask, what kind of person will I now become because it happened? We're going to conclude, as we do every week, with the mourner's kaddish, which you can say along with me. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabam, b'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabam v'varach li'olam li'amei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbawar v'yitramam v'yidnaseh, v'yidadar v'yidaleh v'yidalal shemei dekudisha barichu, li'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechamata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim olenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Olenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Thank you for being with us, friends. We'll be back again next Tuesday as usual. Have a great afternoon. Stay cool.